The first time they arrived, it wasn't with warships or threats. It was with a promise. They called themselves the Vayrani, an ancient and noble species who had watched over younger civilizations for millennia. Their emissaries spoke in flawless English, their words polished by what had to be an advanced understanding of human psychology. They called Earth a precious world, a unique beacon of life in an otherwise dangerous galaxy. And they offered protection. Humanity's leaders had asked the only logical question, protection from what? The answer never came directly. The Vayrani insisted the universe was filled with threats too vast and terrible for Earth to comprehend. But they had the means, the technology, and the experience to keep humanity safe. All they asked in return was cooperation, modest restrictions on scientific research, minor limitations on military expansion, and a gradual integration into the wider galactic community. It wasn't an outright demand, but there was an unspoken implication beneath the elegant phrasing. Accept the protection, or risk standing alone. Some nations welcomed the offer, seeing it as humanity's next great leap. Others hesitated, sensing something off about the arrangement. The Vayrani never displayed their warships, never explained the supposed dangers lurking in deep space. Yet, every conversation circled back to the idea that humanity was vulnerable, that Earth needed them. For a species that had spent its entire existence surviving against impossible odds, the pitch felt wrong. The questions grew louder. If Earth was truly in danger, why wasn't there a single shred of evidence? If the galaxy was hostile, why did the Vayrani alone stand untouched? And then, without warning, they were gone. No explanation, no farewell. Their gleaming envoys vanished overnight, leaving only a final message transmitted across every major network. We have done all we can. You have chosen your path. May your world endure what comes. The silence that followed was worse than any declaration of war. Months passed. Then a year. No invasion came. No monsters from the void. Just an empty sky and a growing realization Earth had been tested. The offer of protection hadn't been a gesture of goodwill. It had been a filter. A choice between complacency and defiance. And humanity had made its decision. What the Vayrani didn't anticipate was that humans don't prepare for threats they can see. They prepare for the ones they can't. Research restrictions were abandoned. Military technology accelerated. Every lesson in strategy, survival, and innovation was pushed to its limit. Earth became a fortress, not out of fear, but out of principle. Humanity had faced the unknown before with fire, steel, and sheer determination. And if something was coming, then it would learn what the Vayrani had already suspected. Earth never needed protection. It was the rest of the galaxy that should have been afraid. It started with whispers, deep space anomalies, distortions in sensor readings, strange fluctuations in the outer colony's long-range communications. At first, it was easy to dismiss. Space was vast, chaotic, unpredictable. But then the disappearances began. Outposts went dark without distress signals. Entire research stations, some orbiting lifeless moons, others hidden deep within asteroid fields, simply ceased responding. Probes sent to investigate never returned. When the first patrol ship, an aging but well-armed cruiser, vanished, the message was clear. Something was out there. And it was watching. Earth's leaders assembled in secret. The Vayrani's cryptic warning was no longer an unanswered question. It was an unspoken countdown. Humanity hadn't just been tested. It had been marked. Every leap forward in technology, every new advancement in propulsion, weaponry, and artificial intelligence had been made under the assumption that one day the sky would not be empty. Now that day had come. The Fleet Initiative had been humanity's greatest gamble. For years, the world's brightest minds worked in underground facilities, far from prying eyes, reverse engineering scraps of alien technology, bending the laws of physics in ways Earth's old treaties had once forbidden. The result wasn't just a new generation of warships, it was a statement. Humanity had never needed permission to stand its ground, and now it had the means to do so. But the first engagement didn't happen at the edge of known space. It happened inside it. A listening post, hidden within the icy rings of a gas giant, intercepted something impossible, an encrypted signal buried within human communication channels. Not alien. Not unknown. Human. A distress call using old Earth encryption, the kind phased out decades ago. Yet the coordinates embedded in the transmission pointed to a system outside any known expansion routes, deep in the void where no human vessel had ever gone. And the voice? It belonged to a man who had been declared missing over 20 years ago. The implications shattered every assumption. If the signal was real, it meant humanity's first contact with the greater galaxy hadn't been with the Vayrani at all. It meant someone or something had been watching Earth long before that diplomatic envoy arrived, before the warnings, before the choice. And now, that presence was making itself known. A single ship was dispatched to investigate Vanguard, a prototype reconnaissance frigate equipped with the best stealth and AI systems humanity had ever developed. Officially, its mission was simple: confirm the origin of the transmission. Unofficially, its crew knew the truth. If someone had been waiting for Earth to cross a line, then humanity had just taken a step too far. When Vanguard reached the coordinates, there was no wreckage, no lifeless station, no derelict ship sending automated echoes into the dark. Instead, there was something far worse. A station, massive and unmistakably alien, floating in the void. And docked to its side intact, untouched, was an Earth vessel that had been declared lost before the first human had ever set foot on Mars. Vanguard drifted in the void, running silent. The alien station was massive, too large for something unknown to have gone unnoticed for so long. And yet, there it was, hidden in the deepest reaches of space, where no human expedition had ever dared to go. But the true shock wasn't its existence. It was the ship docked alongside it, the Odyssey. It was an old Earth vessel, a deep space exploration craft that had vanished nearly a century ago. A ghost ship from a time when humanity was still fumbling through the darkness, barely scratching the surface of the cosmos. There had been no distress signal, no wreckage found, only a silent disappearance. And now, here it was, pristine, untouched, as if it had never been lost at all. Commander Elias Voss exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had seen a lot in his time first contact, secret wars fought in the cold emptiness, betrayals that cut deeper than any battle. But this was something different. The Vanguard's AI-designated Halcyon ran silent analysis, searching for any signs of life. What it found only deepened the mystery. There was a signal inside the Odyssey. Faint. Human. Alive. The crew exchanged looks, silent questions passing between them. The ship was over 100 years old. Whoever was on board shouldn't be. But they weren't alone. Deep space sensors picked up movement and disturbance in the void, something vast shifting in the unseen depths. Not a ship. A presence. Watching. Waiting. Vanguard wasn't the hunter here. It was the bait. Back on Earth, the Discovery sent shockwaves through the highest levels of power. The Unified Command, a coalition of humanity's strongest factions, convened in secrecy, their discussions laced with paranoia and urgency. Some argued for immediate action, a full military response to seize the alien station and uncover its secrets. Others warned of a trap that the Vayrani had never truly left, that this was part of something much larger. And then there were those who believed the real enemy wasn't out there. It was within. Ever since the Vayrani's departure, divisions had been growing. Some factions had wanted the protection, had seen it as a necessary trade for stability. Others had been working in the shadows, hoarding technology, making deals with unseen powers. If someone had known about this station all along, if they had been hiding it, beneath the politics, beneath the maneuvering, one truth remained. Something was coming. Something patient. Something old. A silent order was given. Vanguard was to retrieve whatever or whoever was inside the Odyssey and return immediately. No detours. No engagements. But as Commander Voss moved toward the airlock, the sensors screamed to life. The alien station wasn't abandoned. It had just been waiting. The air inside the Odyssey was stale, heavy with a century of silence. Voss moved carefully, his helmet lights casting long shadows over the dormant control panels, the old Earth insignia still etched into the metal. This ship shouldn't exist, not like this. But the blinking light on the console told a different story. The signal. Someone had sent it. And they were still here. His boots echoed in the empty corridors as he followed the flickering readout. Crew quarters. Cryo bay. Storage. Then, deep in the ship's heart, he found the impossible. A single pod. Active. The glass was fogged over, layers of frost peeling away as the system registered his presence. The biometric scanner still functioned, archaic by modern standards, but unmistakably human in design. He wiped the surface clean, hoping to see something that made sense. The face staring back at him was his own. His breath hitched. The readout on the pod scrolled data too fast to process. Genetic match confirmed. Identity registered. Commander Elias Voss. Born over a century ago. Then the alarms erupted. The station came alive all at once, a pulse of energy rolling through its structure like a dormant beast stirring from slumber. The Vanguard's warning lights flared on his visor, Halcyon's voice cutting through the chaos. Commander, we have a problem. Outside, space twisted. A rupture in the void itself. Not a ship. Not a fleet. Something bigger. Older. The Vanguard's sensors screamed warnings, power readings off the scale, gravitational shifts tearing through the system. This wasn't just a hidden station. It was a beacon. And it had just sent out a call. The first ship emerged from the rift, its hull a jagged mass of shifting alloys, organic yet mechanical, a living weapon molded for war. Then another. And another. They weren't Vayrani. They weren't anything humanity had ever encountered. And they weren't alone. Deep within the halls of power back on Earth, panic gripped the unified command. Live feeds from Vanguard filled the war room, men and women staring in silent horror as the truth unfolded. The warnings, the disappearances, the Vayrani's departure, it had all been leading to this. Humanity had never been protected. It had been hidden. And now, the ones who had been kept at bay had finally found them. Admiral Sato clenched her fists, her voice razor-sharp over the comms. We mobilize everything. Every fleet, every outpost. If we fall back, we lose the entire sector. But it was already too late. The first shots lanced through the void, brilliant arcs of energy carving through the station's structure like paper. Vanguard fired its engines, breaking from the docking point, but the enemy was already closing in. Voss barely had time to drag the unconscious figure from the cryopod before the hull shuddered with impact. Then the AI spoke again, its voice devoid of urgency, carrying only cold, absolute truth. Commander, they're not here to conquer. They're here to erase us. Voss barely had time to react before Vanguard's warning klaxons flared again, the ship's AI flooding his visor with urgent data. The enemy wasn't just attacking, the space around them was shifting, collapsing. The rift hadn't just opened. It was spreading. Like ink bleeding through fabric, reality itself rippled as more of the impossible fleet poured through. He slammed a command into his wrist display. Halcyon, fire at will. Full evasive. Vanguard's thrusters roared to life, breaking free of the station's grasp just as another volley of energy lanced through the structure. The abandoned ship, the one that held him, was crumbling. The unconscious figure in his arms stirred. Then he gasped awake. For a moment, Voss locked eyes with himself. The frozen man, his double, stared back, confusion and something else, something deep, flashing behind his eyes. Then he spoke. They're not just here for us, the other Voss rasped. They've already been here. Before Voss could respond, a new transmission cut across every frequency. Not from Vanguard. Not from Earth. It was old, the audio laced with distortion, but the voice was human. This is the Ark ship Persephone. Do not engage the enemy. They are not invaders. They are, the message crackled, skipping ahead. We were never supposed to return. We were supposed to stay hidden. If you hear this, we have failed. Do not let them find them. The signal cut. Voss felt the weight of it settle in his chest. The Persephone, the ship humanity had lost over 200 years ago, vanishing without a trace on the edge of known space. It had just sent a message. A warning. Halcyon, he barked. Locate the source of that transmission. I already have, Commander, the AI responded. But you're not going to like it. A new set of coordinates flickered on his display. Not out in deep space. Not on some distant world. The signal had come from inside the rift itself. Before Voss could process that, a new horror unfolded outside the viewport. The enemy ships, the living constructs of metal and shadow, weren't advancing anymore. They were changing, twisting. Their hulls split apart, reshaping, reforming. The jagged angles and alien curves peeled away until they became something disturbingly familiar. Human ships. Old designs. Some from a century ago, some from a war no one alive even remembered. Their weapons powered up, their formations shifting into an unmistakable battle line. Voss's breath caught. The enemy fleet was recreating humanity's own forces. His double, the other Voss, gripped his arm, his face pale. They're not just copying us, he said hoarsely. They're trying to replace us. And then, on the edge of the battlefield, the first of the stolen ships turned its guns on Vanguard and fired. The first blast rocked Vanguard so hard that Voss nearly lost his footing. Warning sirens flared in his ears as the ship's reinforced hull barely held against the energy discharge. The stolen ships, those twisted, replicated mockeries of humanity's past, were no longer just copying their form. They were learning, adapting, evasive maneuvers. Voss shouted, gripping the nearest railing as Vanguard pitched violently. Outside, the once alien fleet now moved with unsettling precision, their formations shifting like the battle records they had undoubtedly stolen from humanity's own archives. The Halcyon AI pored over the tactical data, calculating every possible route of escape, but the answer was clear. There was no escape. Not in the conventional sense. Voss turned to his double, the man who'd been frozen in time, and saw the same grim realization reflected in his eyes. They had been playing defense, reacting to a war that had already begun long before this battle. That had to change. What were you trying to warn us about? Voss demanded. The message from Persephone, what was it telling us to stop them from finding? The other Voss hesitated for a fraction of a second, then muttered, the seed. The moment he said it, Vanguard's AI registered the term, unsealing a classified archive buried deep within the ship's memory banks. A forgotten contingency plan. A failsafe developed in humanity's most desperate hour, a technology that had been deemed too dangerous to use, too unpredictable to control. A weapon that wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to overwrite. They're trying to replace us, the other Voss continued, eyes locked on the growing enemy fleet. But if we activate the seed first, we overwrite them. Voss understood instantly. The enemy was using humanity's own data against them, piecing together ships, formations, even tactics. But that meant their very existence, their very code, was built on something stolen. And if humanity could take it back, rewrite the battlefield itself, then maybe, just maybe, there was a way to turn the tide. Halcyon pulsed with new data. Commander, I can initiate the seed protocol, but the range is limited. We would need to deliver it manually. Where? A new marker appeared on the tactical display, deep within the enemy's shifting fleet, an area where their ships flickered strangely, as if their presence was unstable. The heart of the rift, where the invasion had first begun. It was a suicide run. Voss nodded. Then we take Vanguard straight through. The bridge crew paled, but no one argued. The enemy had stolen their weapons, their tactics, even their history, but one thing they would never understand was humanity's sheer defiance. The ship's thrusters roared as Vanguard tore through the blockade, dodging fire, outmaneuvering impossible odds. The stolen ships tried to counter, shifting their formations again, but now they were the ones reacting. And humanity never played fair. The rift loomed ahead. Voss engaged the final sequence. The moment Vanguard crossed into the rift's core, the ship's systems lit up with something entirely new. The rift pulsed like a dying star, its core unraveling in waves of distorted space. For a fraction of a second, there was silence, no weapons fire, no alarms, just the eerie weight of the unknown pressing against reality itself. Then the enemy fleet fractured. Their ships flickered, their sleek, stolen hulls twisting into jagged fragments of half-existence. The seed protocol had taken hold. The battlefield wasn't just shifting, it was rewriting itself. Voss gripped the controls, eyes locked on the chaos outside. The enemy was failing. Their formations broke apart, their stolen knowledge betraying them. What had been a near-perfect mimicry of humanity's tactics was now crumbling under its own weight. The ships weren't just losing, they were forgetting. Without their stolen identity, they had no foundation. The war machines they had crafted from scavenged human ingenuity were now nothing more than hollow shells. Halcyon's voice cut through the static. "Commander, their command structure is collapsing. They are retreating." The words barely seemed real. After all the battles, the losses, the endless war of adaptation, it was them who finally broke. The rift flared one last time, its energy folding inward, dragging what remained of the enemy's fleet into its collapsing maw. And then, like a great exhale, the universe went still. A stunned breath passed through the bridge crew. They had won. But at what cost? The other Voss's future, or past, or whatever paradox defined his existence, stood beside him, watching the fading rift. He had fought to prevent this moment. He met Voss's gaze and gave a weary nod, an unspoken understanding passing between them. "I don't belong here," he said simply. Voss didn't argue. The rift had stolen time, fractured it, and for all they had fought to correct it, there would always be pieces left behind. The other Voss turned, stepping into the fading light of the anomaly. A flicker, a breath, then he was gone. The bridge remained quiet. No cheers, no celebrations, just the weight of a battle won, and the enormity of what came next. The enemy was gone, but so was the war that had defined them for so long. Humanity had outlasted yet another impossible threat. As the remaining fleet drifted in the void, the stars stretched ahead endless and untouched. Earth would endure, as it always had. And beyond the wreckage, beyond the remnants of a war that should have never happened, there was something waiting the future. Voss exhaled and turned back to his crew, set a course for home. And for the first time in a long, long time, there was a home to return to.